Welcome to Plot Recon, where thrillers get tactical. I'm your host, Evan Graver. Today, we're crossing from the flight deck to the far edge of speculative fiction. My guest is John R. Carlos. After 40 plus years in the Royal Australian Air Force, he's turned his mission focus towards storytelling, launching the bold new sci-fi saga Chronic Dreams Awakening. It's a debut that dives into the ethics of biotechnology, resurrection, and the cost of control, where the systems we build to protect humanity may be the ones that enslave it. With the precision of a strategist and the imagination of a futurist, John explores what happens when the human spirit refuses to be programmed. Welcome to the show, John.
Sorry, my speaker's just gone out. I'm so sorry. What a time for this to happen.
No worries. No worries. John's down in Australia, so we got a little time lag and a little technology lag. So while you guys are waiting for us to figure this out, jump over to my site, evangraver.com, and grab some cool swag. There's some Plot Recon shirts and some stickers. So that's my plug for the day. So you back up, John?
Yes. Hi, Evan.
All
How you
right.
going?
Good.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. But
No worries.
thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I would not have known about you without your publicist, Eve Bailey Media. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, you got to have John on the show. I think he'd be a good fit." So I did not. I had never heard your name. You got one book out, but it looks like it's got great reviews on Amazon. And so before we dig into the book, let's talk about your background a little bit in the Royal Australian Air Force. So how'd you get into the Air Force and what did you do?
Well, it's a very long story. It's ever since I was young, I always wanted to be in uniform. I was in what we call the cadets here. I think you call it ROTC. While you're at school, you can. So yeah. I've been in uniform since I was about 14 years old. But when my first attempt at university failed, I thought, well, where am I going to go? So I decided to join the Air Force. I enlisted, and I did 17 years as an enlisted, and then I got my commission and jumped across to the dark side, as they call it. And I did another, 15 plus years there. So it was 42 years of service. I enjoyed my time there. But when I turned 60, I retired. I've always wanted to do a bit of writing, which is why I went this way. But my time in the Air Force was, as you'd expect, I did a lot of touring around Australia. I had several deployments overseas, and luckily they were uneventful. And after 42 years of service, it was time to hang up my hat, so to speak. But here I am, and I decided to extend my hand out to writing. I've always enjoyed the idea of storytelling. I was a good business writer as during my service career. So when I finished, deciding to go with writing, I actually reached out and did a course just to do that crossover, because there's a real mindset change going from business writing to creative writing, as you'd expect. And during that time, I decided that Chronic Dreams was the first book I wanted to.
Okay. So on your website, it looks like you have a trilogy coming, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Chronic Dreams Awakening is the first of a trilogy. It's basically about a dystopian future. In writing it, I looked at what is the future potentially look like from where we are now. And so if you go onto my website, you'll see there's a mind map and some what I call key variables of causation. So basically, taking a systems approach, I looked at the events technology that's unfolding and extrapolated that out. And from that, I actually designed a timeline of events to take us from where we are now today to the time of when the book actually is set. It was a very interesting project, if you like, going through that series of questions, because it made me look at our politics today and it really gives you an idea of some of the possible trajectories that we're heading on. Some of them are a little bit scary. Yeah, so it was quite an interesting exercise.
Yeah. And so when you're plotting that out, are you building the character worksheets and developing your character as you go so you know who they are before you start writing the book?
Well, you do, yes, and I did. I created basically the fundamentals of the characters and what type of person I thought they were. But it's amazing how, as you start to write, they actually evolve. They become deeper, more complex, and they become deeply human. It's quite an exercise to go through that.
It is. And I think it helps build your world. I've written books both ways where you don't develop the character and you just let them kind of pants out across the page. And
Yes.
I've developed a deep, background and worksheet for the characters. And like you said, no matter which way you do it, the
Yeah.
character always evolves and becomes more human. And so, as we're looking at the future with the humans, tell us a little bit about the book, the premise of the book, and some
Sure.
of the main themes in it.
Yeah. Awakening, the first part, is a story that blends a lot of things that I find fascinating. It is a thriller, but as I said, it's also deeply human. At its core, it's about a brilliant scientist called Dr. Michelle Brown, and she's working on a cutting edge cryonic reanimation procedure. And it's the idea of bridging life and death using advanced nanotechnology and bioengineering, which opens up all kinds of emotional questions and ethical questions. But the character Michelle starts off pretty detached, just focused on science. But as the story unfolds, she becomes this fiercely protective figure. She's fighting against sabotage, political intrigue, and a whole lot of moral dilemmas. All while she's trying to save her reanimated patient, Marianne Kendricks, who's been frozen for over a century. And when she wakes, she's she's got no memory. So she's a bit mysterious, and as you find out, her past is something that somebody doesn't want to be exposed. Pardon me. And she's also carrying something that is mysterious. Then there's also the Michelle has this AI partner called Holly. The avatar of this AI is 12-year-old girl, right? And it's so she's the way I've written her into the book. She's actually starting to develop awareness, and Holly's journey. Holly actually stands for Hospital Operations and Logistics Intelligence because she's part of the research, the hospital and research centre. Holly's journey is about finding out what it really means to be conscious in a world dominated by technology. There's also another character called Jackson Robertson. He's a fusion drive engineer. He's also a man of deep faith. His grounded spirituality provides the emotional anchor in the high-tech, high-stakes world he's in. He's like family to Michelle and Angela. Well, he becomes like family to Michelle and Angela. And his story brings in themes of loyalty, sacrifice, and conviction in this fractured society. The setting itself is it's a post-pandemic technocratic world where agencies like the main controlling agency on Earth is called ACID, and it basically stands for Agency Against the Spread of Infectious Diseases. They control everything with surveillance and biogovernance, a place where scientific progress and authoritarian oversight are constantly at odds, which creates the tense backdrop for the story. But what really drives the narrative is the tension between memory and identity, how technology can both erase and preserve who we are. There's this ongoing conflict between individual freedom in the story and oppressive systems, which feels very relevant today. At the end of the day, Chronic Dreams isn't just about a scientific breakthrough. It's a meditation on what it means to be human when consciousness itself can be manipulated, preserved, or even reborn. It challenges us to think about the ethical and existential questions that come with technology,
All
especially in
right,
a
let's
world that's fractured and constantly watched.
well, let me ask you a question about that. So we're in this science fiction world, but the themes that you've touched on are we've seen happen in the last few years and are driving more towards that area you're talking about with the AI and the overreach and the surveillance. Having lived in the military and seen all of this stuff develop, what other than the parallels that we just discussed, what are you seeing like AI developing into Terminator or it all the systems are there. There's just the AI takes over and destroys humanity.
Uh, Look, technology can it's a great it helps us significantly. So technology is great, but it can also be used to control things like AI. And if you look at the timeline I've put together, one of the biggest issues is that's coming is robotics, because to be human means we need purpose to have a reason for existing.
Definitely.
And once AI and robotics comes in, what are we going to do? How are we going to be employed? Are we going to just create meaningless jobs? Become a toenail cutter, for example. It's a ridiculous example, but you can see what I mean. Everything that's of any meaning is gone. What's left for us? So this is where technology into moving into the future is going to be very tricky, because we have robotics to create efficiencies in the things we produce. But we got to remember that at the end of what we produce is us people buy what these people are trying to sell. So if we're not in the process of that creating so that we can sell it to ourselves, make it available to ourselves, then what's the point of it? We just got to be very careful about the direction we take, and we always got to balance the human need against the efficiencies that we try to.
Well, so there's a lot of talk in writer circles now about the use of AI in writing. There's people out there creating AI work and selling it, and there's other people who are absolutely draw the line. They're either not going to write using AI, they're not going to read anything or listen to anything that's created by AI. Where are you falling in that category?
My stories will not be written by AI. They are my creative imagination. So that's not to say I won't use AI, because I have in fact used AI to create some of the items I have on my website, because trying to extend my universe of cryonic dreams is all well and good, but there's years and years of work there. So in creating my website and supporting it, I have used AI as a tool to make efficiencies in what I'm trying to achieve. But the story itself, no,
Well,
that's me.
I fall into that camp too. I'm not going to use AI for writing. I will use AI to, um, critique my writing to help edit it.
Yes.
But to write the story, I don't think to me, it's not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It produces a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And if you have read enough AI generated stuff, you can quickly see what is generated by AI and what's not.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I mean, AI is not always right.
It's true.
And I have critiqued my work using AI, but even then, I still use a professional editor to go through my work, because you still need to keep that, I think, the human element involved. And this is a reflection of the direction we're going. So, I mean, your question is very relevant. So, if we allow ourselves to be used by the technology that we create, and we don't reflect on the importance that the human element plays, then we're just going to sink into the quagmire. It's just we're going to end up in a dark place.
Conspiracy, we talked about robots, and I keep kicking over in my mind that there's a conspiracy theory that the UN comes out with Agenda 2030, basically
Yep.
says that you're going to own nothing and you're going to like it.
Hmm.
And there's universal income, and the robots are basically doing everything, and humans are kind of a sideline show on Earth. So does that play into your books too?
Absolutely. It's one of the things I use to create the timeline. In fact, some of the, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that there's evil behind it, but what I am suggesting is that it can take us in the wrong direction. And the whole globalist ideal, while it might be virtuous as an end goal, the world is not ready for a global identity. And all these plans that you can see coming through the UN, for me, they're way too early, and all they're going to be doing is creating division. And that's why you have such a populist movement these days, because a lot of people don't like the direction we're going in. So yes, they're in part of the key variables of causation that I've used to plot out the potential events that will happen, that will come over the next century. So I mean, I looked at it as strategically as I could. These plans, policies, and intentions by globalists, while they might be come from a virtuous place, they're not heading us in the right direction. I don't believe it's too early.
So when you deep dive into some of this stuff, it can kind of make you change your mindset about some stuff and make you a little negative about what's going on in the world and how the policies are playing out from our leadership. Is that something that you deal with? Do you have to sit back and say, okay, some of this is just science fiction, and go take a walk and be in humanity?
Absolutely. You look. I really enjoyed writing Chronic Dreams. It was an exciting place to be in my head, and a very scary place, but it was exciting to write it out. But you have to remind yourself, because it's quite easy to look at because I've used this strategy to create these possible events, then potentially that's all I can see coming. So you got to remain as critical about what is happening as you can, and continually to reassess what is happening against what is possible and what might happen. So you got to bring yourself back. Yes.
So as you laid out this timeline from today to the year that your book takes place, have you seen any of those events come true? Because there's I think Brad Thor said that fiction authors are basically like fortune tellers. We're going to go out and look for the world's hot spots, or what the next, where the next action is going to take place. That seems to be your active trend too, but you're using it more in a technological direction.
Yes. I don't know if I've specifically seen anything happen yet, but a number of people have um, read the book, and when they looked at the timeline of events that I've created, they've actually said this could potentially be quite prophetic. So,
Yeah.
and it's scary because I didn't set out to be a prophet. I'm just writing a story. So, as exciting as I think it is, but it's just a story.
Do you see any parallels between your book and what's going on in the book 1984?
Well, in terms of an oppressive regime, that's the parallels. It's about oppression of freedom, individual freedoms, and about control. And you can see that that is a very potential outcome of what's coming our way. So there is definite comparisons there.
Yeah, we see it a lot. Words change meaning. The government changes definitions. It's the old double speak from the books.
Yes.
So when you look at surveillance technologies come a long ways. We have like a camera on every corner and cameras outside our house. What did you pull from to create technology in your book? Did you have access to advanced technology in the military? Did you see any of that stuff come through the line?
No, not really. My background was in what I was doing was predominantly support. I was in a support function. So all the technology that is in the book, I researched myself, and some of it is a little out there, but some of it is very much ground in technologies that are already being considered and looked at. The nanotechnology that I use, I use in the book to help revive the patient, Marianne, and the nanomedicine technologies that are being looked at right now. So potentially, yes, there are these technologies already in play.
Yeah. Everybody likes to use the term military grade, and the joke over here is that military grade is the cheapest contractor that you can find.
Yes. Well, being cynical, yes, that's exactly right. And there's many times throughout my career that I thought that myself
Yeah.
with some of the decisions that were being made.
Yeah, the movies like to depict military intelligence like as all these amazing computers and this high tech cutting edge stuff, and there's just some guy in the corner with a Commodore 64 hoping the blinker stops curse blinking, so he can go home.
And it's sometimes bureaucracy gets involved in the decision making, and that's not good either, because the decision is not then driven by capability; it's driven by bureaucratic principles,
Yeah.
which
What
doesn't help.
what can the budget withstand,
Yeah,
and what are the taxpayers willing to foot the
yeah,
bill for?
yeah, yeah,
So when
exactly.
you finished the book, what did you decide to do? You stuck it up on Amazon and said it's out there and people please come read my book.
Well, as I said, the day my book got released, I also looked at how many other new books were out there, and there was just so many of them. I thought, how am I going to get people to, you know, to single out my book? And so that's when I decided I needed to get some marketing behind it as well. So I ended up getting. So you're one of about 20 podcasts that I'll be doing. So
Amazing.
it's been a learning experience for sure. But when I wrote the story, in fact, and why it turned into a trilogy was I actually, because I've almost finished the part two, and that's because the original story included part two in it. So it was one book, but then talking with my editor, because there's so much story in it and so much to, and the characters were developing so deeply that um, my editor said turn it into two books, and which is so I did. And Awakening is basically the first half of what I had, and part two won't be far behind. It'll be probably sometime next year, and from there, that's when it actually I decided to make it into a trilogy, because even at the end, after the end of this what I had laid out as the first book, there's still the story is not complete. So I decided to add the trilogy to round it all.
You think that there's a possibility of continuing it down the road into a deeper series? Because what we see from readers on Amazon and other platforms is that they want to read through a series, and like the trilogy is the starting point, and then the more books you have in the series, the better to read through.
Well, what I did is um, I've left opening. I think at the end of the trilogy, it really finishes off the story. But because I've created the timeline of events between now and then, it actually opens up the universe of cryonic dreams, if you like. And there are lots of opportunities for me to write more stories inside that timeline, inside that. So I didn't actually intend it that way when I set out to write the book. But once I had it there, I thought, wow, there's so much I could do here, which is good. And I will consider that down the track.
Yeah, I started out writing just a trilogy myself, and then it just developed into 15 books in a series. And I was like,
Wow.
well, I'm kind of done with this one. I want to move on, and the readers keep asking for more, so I'm working on the 16th one. So readers get attached to the characters and to the
Yeah.
stories and the timelines, and so you're probably going to see this. They're going to ask you for more. They're going to want to know, what happens, and these characters become like old friends. And I
Well,
hope,
that's
I always hope that new authors can develop that relationship with their readers.
Yeah. Well, that's why I decided to create the website. Um, and, people can go on there and write whatever they want to let me know if there's a particular angle they want to see, or more stories they want to see, and what direction they could see the story continue. I certainly would consider all that.
All right. So you keep talking about your website, so we're going to plug it. It's johnrcarlos.com.au.
Correct. Yes.
So jump over there, take a look at it. It's pretty interesting. A lot of information about the stories, and
Yep. And I've
so
got a lot more information coming as well, so it'll grow.
yeah, very very interesting character bios and information about the characters. I thought that
Yes.
was pretty unique.
Yeah, there is that canon and law section which expands the universe and gives you a great deal more information. And just be careful, there is spoiler alerts in there. So if you haven't read the book, but yeah, I've tried to create a lot of depth to the universe, if you like, the Chronic Dreams universe.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
all I can hope is that people like it and enjoy it.
That's the only hope we have, right? So how deeply, you brought on Eve Bailey Media. So how deeply are you involved in stuff like advertising? Are you running ads anywhere?
Well, through Eve, there are a lot of ads. Even though I'm based in Australia, my predominant market is the US because there are a lot more potential customers there than there are here in Australia. And there is a lot of advertisement going on through Eve's company, Flow Communications. I'm also looking at through my publisher, which is Silversmith Press. They're looking at doing some advertising as well, and that'll include social media.
So are you traditionally published, or is it like a hybrid?
It's a hybrid. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um,
So you
yeah, so I basically invested in my own book,
okay. I mean,
and
we're all invested in our own books. So.
yeah, in more ways than one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. So it's been quite an interesting experience. The
so
journey's
are
been
you as I say, are you pushing out? You got the website, you've got the advertising. Are you? And you said you're going to do more podcasts. Are you involved in? What is your daily life like? Are you just sitting there kicking out words, or are you
yeah.
doing a little
Well,
wearing the
yes,
hat of everybody?
a little bit of all of that. When I retired, I didn't know what to expect, and but I think I'm busier now than when I was actually working. So between writing, the website, and all of that, it's just I'm putting in quite long hours, and of course the podcasts now. So it's
Yeah, it's
all a lot of fun.
what I like about the podcast is that the writing is very solitary. There's days when I'll sit in front of the computer and the only people I talk to are my wife and son and probably the dog. But the podcast is great because it's a way for us to connect and
Yes.
to see each other face to face and establish some sort of rapport. And it's just I always find it enjoyable. And
Yeah.
there's times where I'm like, oh man, I got to do a podcast, and then as soon as the thing comes on, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I enjoy it. And it's fun talking. So
Yeah.
it's fun to be out among people again.
Yeah. It is good. It's a lot of fun actually getting the opportunity to talk about the book as well and your ideas. So meeting new people as well. It's fantastic. I really didn't know what to expect, and it's been I'm learning as I go, but it is a lot of fun.
So this happens to a lot of new authors as we come in and we're like, oh man, look, somebody's reading my book, and then we kind of feel this imposter syndrome of maybe I'm not as good as Brad Thor or the guy who writes the book about the Martian. I
Yeah.
can't remember. Yeah, so the guy
I
that
mean,
moves Matt Damon in space. So we struggle with the imposter syndrome. Do you find that any of the training and the leadership that you had coming out of the military helped you with that transition?
a little. I think what it's given me focus and it's given me structure to work with. Like I was saying, I looked at the original concept strategically, uh, so which is why I created the mind map and the variables, the causation variables, which help me extrapolate potential outcomes, and I created the timeline as a result. So that was strategic thinking, and which is, I have no doubt, is from my background.
Did when you went into this book, did you do all the research first and then write it, or did you, as
Uh,
you're writing it, go back and go, well, I need to figure this out?
I did do a lot of research up front. A lot of it was in cryonics because I I had always intended to start the book in the middle of the procedure of waking the patient or reanimating the patient. It was, yeah, that was always my intent. But with as the story unfolded and you start to create the world, then you realize there's technology here that I need to just look a little bit deeper into. So, yes, you do a lot of research up front, but then as the story unfolds, because the story tells itself once you start, because the world just opens up for you as you start to create the characters and give them depth and you put them in circumstances. And sometimes when you're actually writing, that's when you realize how a character is going to react to something. So all of that means that there's always new things coming into play. If it's not a characteristic for one of the characters, it's some technology or a potential event that needs to go on the timeline. So yeah, though there was a lot up front, but there's still quite a lot to come as you
Yeah.
write it.
When you talk about cryonics, I think Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes, where they unfreeze them and they have this big fight the whole movie. So that's the way a lot of storylines come out. And so there's sometimes when I think that, when you're in the flow of writing and the characters are really talking to you, that it's almost like somebody's beaming it in from a third dimension, or you know, the storyline's happening somewhere and I'm just writing it. Yeah, it just flows right to us and we put it on the page and then people get to enjoy it. So it's a, there's a theory out there that there's infinite timelines and that everything we do causes a new timeline to split. So maybe we're just writing somebody's timeline, and every time we make a decision, when we say we have to be harsher on this character and we put them in a difficult spot, we're creating a new timeline for them. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, John. And that is a wrap for this episode of Plot Recon, where thrillers get tactical. Thank you to John R. Carlos for taking us from the command center to the cryonic chamber and showing how discipline, duty, and imagination intersect when a career in defense becomes a mission in storytelling. If you haven't yet picked up his debut novel, Cryonic Dreams Awakening, start right there, and he's going to add more. And if you want to learn more about John, you can go to his website, johnrcarlos.com.au, because he is in Australia, or follow him on the author socials for updates on the next installment in the series. If this episode of Plot Recon hit the mark, share it, leave a review, and subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. And again, check out the merch section on evangraver.com and get yourself one of these cool Plot Recon t-shirts, stickers, and other cool gear. I'm Evan Graver. Thanks for listening. Stay sharp, write hard, and keep your fiction tactical.